I think it's 1 o'clock. Oh, it is 1 o'clock. In theory, we should be live. Hopefully. Just check that the technology works. Well, I think that's 1 o'clock anyway. So welcome to my first ever online Farm Sunday. We've hosted Open Farm Sunday a couple of times, and this is the first ever online Farm Sunday. So yeah, I mean, it's slightly different, isn't it? But I'm going to try and recreate what we do at Open Farm Sunday if I can, which is we normally do a tractor and trailer tour, which is usually quite well received. I'm going to try and do that tractor and trailer tour on my own with just the camera. Whether it works, we'll soon find out. But hopefully you can all hear me and the technology is working. Quite amazing, really, that I can be stood in the middle of the field talking to all of you lot. So yeah, I mean, I have got a slight plan, contrary to popular belief, and hopefully we're going to try and just go through the cropping that we have here. We're 500 acres in Ross and Wye in Hertfordshire. And we grow, well, 6 different crops. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to look at most of those crops. There's just one I can't quite get to on my tour, sadly. And I'm stood here at the moment in the middle of a field of barley. There's a few reasons I'm stood here, mainly because it's got the best views on our farm. And let's be honest, everyone loves a good view. And this is a field of spring malting barley that we're growing that will end up, hopefully, very soon in a pint of beer near you. And then maybe even more hopefully, we might be able to enjoy that in a pub at some point in time. But I'm also up here because I want to do the stereotypical farmer thing of complaining about the weather. Now, some of you probably will have seen me all over BBC in the winter where we were under quite a lot of water. We have about 160 acres of the farm that floods, and last year it really flooded, really flooded. So yeah, I flew the drone over the Riverland fields whilst they were under about 5 or 6 foot of water, and it was one of those things that got picked up by the news channels, and once they've got you, they've got you. And yeah, I mean, it was incredible footage. It's quite incredible to watch the Riverland go underwater. We just don't expect it to go under quite as much as it did. But fast forward 3 months, it was only 3 months, or just over 3 months ago, that we were under all this amount of water, and now it's dried out, really. I mean, I think, as I'm sure you'll all be aware, ever since lockdown started, the weather has been absolutely glorious. So we're now, bizarrely enough, irrigating our spring barley, because it has gone so dry that we're now having to add water to it. Now, the mathematics of it don't really add up. It probably isn't cost effective for us to do this, but we have old irrigation kit that we used to have from when we grew potatoes, and Dad sadly didn't sell it, so it means that I have to try. Now, we are pumping water from about 1 kilometre down there by the river, all the way up through the farmyard, you can see in the background, up an underground main, all the way up to here. Now, the sort of the stats of it are slightly incredible. This field is about 25 acres of malting barley. To irrigate this field with 1 inch of rain, which happens fairly regularly during the winter and normally during the summer as well, we need to put on 2,500 tonnes of water. So we are pumping 2,500 tonnes of water 1 kilometre uphill to irrigate this field of barley. If we got 1 inch of rain over the whole farm, we would need 50,000 tonnes of water. That's the amount of rain that really comes out, which is why, you know, we see farmers complaining about the weather and complaining about the dry, and they go, oh, well, why don't you just water it? The sheer quantity of water that you require is incredible. Now, the reason we're doing this is because hopefully this barley here will become a nice cold pint. Now, and to do that, it has to meet a load of different standards. One of those standards is nitrogen. It has to have a low nitrogen content so that the beer brews in the same way. Now, we're expecting a reduced yield at the moment because there hasn't been enough rain to really make this crop reach its full potential. And the way that we dilute nitrogen in the barley is by having more yield. The more barley grains there are, the more dilute the nitrogen is between the grains. So we're trying to water it to bulk out the grains and then hopefully increase our yield as well, so that we will meet the standards for the malting barley. There's lots and lots of other standards that we have to meet, but that's one of them. The other one is that we have to have 98% germination. So of every ton of barley that goes into the maltsters, 98% of those seeds have to germinate. So from 100 seeds, 98 have to germinate. That's a pretty high level. Now you're gonna have to excuse me. I have got to go for a little bit of a drive. Hopefully it'll all be done. You can see the health and safety of Leaf probably getting a bit cross with me, but I am putting it into hands-free mode, with my hand over the top of everything. There we go, hopefully that'll work. As we just go for a little bit of a drive down the farm. So the malting barley is one of the crops we grow, and it's the one we grow by the biggest area, and it was also what we replaced a lot of the crops that we lost in the winter. So the riverland, like I said about the flooding, we had some crops down on the river, and sadly they all died. We had, I think, 12 floods between the end of September and the middle of March, which is unusual. We farm on a floodplain, so we do expect to flood. Oh no, that's not gone well, has it? Oh, you fell off. This is the joy of live. So we have 160 acres that floods, and we try and grow a wide rotation, so we do have to put some winter crops down on the river. Sadly, this year they died. It's a calculated risk, and this year it didn't pay off, and it's cost us quite a lot of money. So we have now currently replanted all of those fields in spring barley. So this year we'll have about 215 acres of spring barley, whereas normally we'd have 150. So it really has increased our acreage this year, but that's one of those things. So it's also the specialist crop that we grow. I'm just going to slot you back into here before we enter a road. We're all on private tracks at the moment, but we are going to have to just cross a very small lane very briefly and hope that doesn't fall out. Slight technical problems. So anyway, so that's why we're growing quite so much malting barley. And it's quite a tricky crop to grow. We're part of a growers group, and each year it has its own challenges, and each year we try and meet the standards. More often than not we do, but it gets a little bit more difficult. So that's the malting barley covered. I want to address the elephant in the room, my nose. Now, with irrigation, we're amateurs at it. We're not very good at it, and it's not something that we do very often because, let's face it, we live 6 miles from Wales, and normally we get enough rain. So this year we haven't got enough rain, so I have had an argument with an irrigation pipe this year, and as you can see from my nose, it's all dead. I did not win that argument. I got scalped by an irrigation pipe. Right, this is the bit where I just concentrate for health and safety as I just cross a very little lane. So I lost an argument with irrigation pipe. It turns out that my nose versus little bits of aluminium is not something that we'd win. That was the irrigation. Now I want to take you around on the next bit of the tour to the wheat that we're growing. Now wheat is obviously a very common crop. I saw Jake earlier was growing his wheat for bread. Our wheat all goes into feed. What they usually say is if you can grow malting barley, you can't grow milling wheat. Jake manages to do both of that because he's very good at what he does. And we're growing all of our wheat for feed. Now, again, we irrigated the wheat last week because it was just so dry, and we use satellite technology to look at how well the crop is growing. And we had a satellite image from last Monday which showed all the wheat crops looking fairly healthy, and then we had that really hot week, and we're on a really light sand here, and that absolutely crucified our wheat. And actually we're going to show you some of it now. It just killed it off. Basically our sand doesn't control its moisture very well. It's very free draining, so in a wet year it does drain quite freely and we can get onto the ground. But in a dry year, it loses its moisture really fast, and that is hugely detrimental and will always be one of the reasons that we can never quite produce the maximum yield potential of the crop. So we decided to irrigate the wheat fields last year, which means getting our 1968 combine engine out, pumping it down by the river and hoping that everything works. It didn't all work, but it is working now. And actually the satellite then flew over again on Sunday after we had that really hot 27-degree week, And the difference between the field that we had irrigated and the field that we hadn't irrigated was quite phenomenal, actually, and fairly terrifying. Hopefully Tabitha might be putting an image in the comments of how bad it was, but basically it crucified the crop, and we're now looking at probably what was, I don't know, maybe a 2.5, 3 ton wheat crop is now probably going to be more like a 2.5 ton wheat crop. So that's why we're irrigating. That's the end of any health and safety issues. Put you back into here and show you what I'm talking about. Oh, don't do that. I mean, it's not quite as professional as potentially some of the others are. It's just trying to achieve too many things. I think I'm probably over enthusiastic and trying to achieve. But so this is what I'm talking about. This is the field of wheat that we irrigated, and what you can see down in here is that this should all still be green, because we should still be producing lots of green, and these heads should be filling. They've just gone through what they call flowering, and what they really need at that time is for the grains to fill. We need a lot of moisture, and we just sadly haven't got it. I don't know whether you can see on the bank. I don't know whether I can zoom in. I'm going to try and zoom in. So you see on the bank there where it's all gone really pale, and it should be a beautiful bright green colour, a little bit more like it is here. This is where our sandy patches are, and the crop is it's just droughted out, and we have tried to save it by watering it. Whether we have or not we'll have to work out when the combine goes through to see if we have saved it or not. I want to show you onto a slightly more novel crop now. So we grow 5 different crops, like I said. So barley, wheat, oilseed rape, sugar beet, and we're also trying soya. Soya is not grown in the UK very much. I've been growing it for 4 years, and I'm starting to realise probably why it's not grown in the UK very much. But I'm glutton for punishment, so I've had another go at it this year. And actually, the one thing soya loves is heat. So we've got the best establishment we've ever had. Now, the majority of it is grown in South America, the US, and 80% of it, or even more actually, is GM. Obviously, in the UK, we can't grow GM. That's a whole nother debate. So we are growing non-GM soya. The purpose of it is for animal feed. So it's a really good protein crop. And again, it's a legume, so a bit like peas, it fixes nitrogen. And as we are trying to grow this crop, the lovely thing about our sand is it warms up really, really fast. And where we are in the Wye Valley has a lovely microclimate. So we think we can make it work. I mean, you look over there, there's polytunnels growing strawberries. In Hertfordshire, we can grow pretty much every crop there is to be grown. You know, there's asparagus, strawberries, pears, top fruit. From here, I can see all of those different crops. So I decided to have a go at soya. And this is our 4th year of growing it. We've grown it 3 years previously, and we've had a good year, an average year, and last year was a terrible year because it was really wet and cold in June, which is not what this crop needs. But actually this year, it's looking really well, and I'm really pleased with how it does look. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it copes with the drought. Now, there's many things that soya hates, and I did try to list them once, but we haven't got enough time for that. So the only thing that soya likes is hot, basically, which is why it's not really grown in a maritime climate. It's grown elsewhere, but we are trying it, and actually from a financial point of view, it probably isn't any worse than the peas that we grew for the 10 years previously. So it's a different crop, but like I say, from here, this year, it looks really good. An interesting soya fact for you all, because it's quite hard to relate these crops to something. Sometimes you see that this will go for an animal feed. It's about 46% protein, which is a really good animal feed. Sort of beans and peas are about 23-24%, so it's double that. But also, if you go to Wagamama's ever, edamame beans are juvenile soya seeds. So there you go. There's an interesting fact for you. You might have all known that. I didn't know that until about 5 years ago. I didn't realise that edamame was soya, but it turns out that it is. I'm being attacked by dogs. So yes, we also grow sugar beet, which we're going to go and have a look at now. And I also just want to show you a little bit around the technology that we have. I love technology. I'm a massive technology freak when it comes to all that sort of stuff. I love everything precision based, and we have adopted it fairly heavily on the farm. We use RTK GPS, so each of our tractors has got GPS on it, so it drives itself, which is useful because I am not a very good tractor driver. But the key to this GPS is that it's accurate to 2.5 centimeters. So every single time I drive out into a field, I am accurate to within a 50p piece. Now that's incredible, and that is repeatable year on year on year on infinitely. So that means that we can drive to the same place within 2.5 centimeters every single year. And what we're doing now is we're putting our tram lines back in the same places. We're just trying to improve what we do with the soil by only traveling in certain areas. And this is what it's all about. I mean, let's be honest, everyone wants to come to a farm, they want to sit in a tractor. So I thought, why not? We better sit in a tractor. So this is our new tractor that we bought in December. It's 240 horsepower-ish, 270 if you want to read what it says on the bonnet. Don't ignore what it says on the bonnet, it's lying. It's 240. And on the back of that is what you probably all recognise as a plough. It's a little bit old-fashioned to plough, but we've still got one because it does quite a good job. And in the old days, we would have gone round and we would have ploughed absolutely everything because it creates a good seedbed, it buries weeds, and every single year you can rely upon it. We're moving away from that now for different reasons. Environmental, time-saving, cost-saving, and we've moved towards a sort of direct drilling thing, which I will show you now. Just quickly inside the tractor, because this is where I spend too many hours of my days sat in this glass box, which I suppose is why we've sort of been good at lockdown. And basically everything I need to do can be controlled by that one joystick and that screen, which again is useful because I like technology and am a terrible tractor driver. So I use this steering wheel occasionally, but not very often. I use this button a lot, which turns the auto steer on. And that is pretty much me done in the tractor, and then I sit there for many hours watching it drive itself, and to be honest, wondering how actually people sat there and drove them manually, because my concentration span is not good enough to be able to do that. But what we've done, so everything we do is controlled by satellites, and that moves us on to our machinery, our new drill. So we used to plough and cultivate all the time for everything. So we used to over cultivate the soil, we'd winter plough, and that has its own environmental issues which I didn't really like, including leaving bare soil running off down into the river, and also there's a massive time saving to this sort of drill. But now what we're doing is we leave the fields as stubble, and we go straight in with this piece of kit, which is now our strip till seed drill. These legs here, they break up the soil first, and then down these pipes I can place fertiliser. So I'm not just throwing fertiliser around throughout the back of a fertiliser spreader. These pipes are putting the fertiliser exactly where the crop needs it, which is down by its roots. And then as we go back, these wheels give it a little bit of consolidation before we get to here where the seed boots are. And then down these pipes comes all the seed. So in one pass with one tractor, I can prepare the soil, plant the seed, compress the seed behind it, consolidate with these wheels, and then if I need to, out the back here, I can either plant another crop or I can put in slug pellets or anything else that we might need to do. And that's it. I drive out of the field and I walk away. The time saving is phenomenal, and part of the precursor for that is that before we had a farm employee who was here for 50 years, which is incredible. Graham was absolutely fantastic, and he retired at 2017. And really, we needed to save time. And so the way for us to save time was to try and move away from cultivation. And along with all of that, it's also helped us try to improve the environment in a way that means that we're storing more water, we're allowing more birds. Like when I was up in that barley field, you wouldn't have been able to hear the skylarks over my head, which 5 years ago I don't think we would have had. And I think we've been guilty, as many others, of taking the farm and the soil for granted. And now we really need to start putting some stuff back into that, which is what we're trying to do. Last crop we're going to look at, sugar beet. Now, I know Tom is going to look at sugar beet later on, so I won't talk too much about it. But this is the last crop that we grow, and I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking you're a long way away from the sugar beet factories, and we are. And sadly, we can't grow for the sugar beet factories anymore because we are too far away. So we are growing this for a mixture of things, but predominantly it now goes into renewable energy. And the renewable energy is produced in an AD plant, which is basically a giant cow, and the bacteria within the AD plant convert the sugar in the sugar beet into gas, and the gas then goes through a turbine which creates the renewable energy, which means that when you flick on your kettle you have electricity and you can heat the water. So yeah, it's a different way. So I suppose, as well as growing crops for people to eat, we're also now growing crops for people to be able to heat their homes or to be able to create electricity. So it's amazing what goes on the farm, and you know, it's not all about growing food. You know, that's something that we need to do more of, and we need to do it better, as well as protecting the environment and also farming much more with nature. I think in the past we've been guilty of trying to battle nature, and actually, as I found out, especially this year with flooding and now with a little bit of drought, is that Mother Nature always wins. There is no way of beating her. She is a cruel mistress at times, but if you can work with her, then hopefully it creates a better environment for all of us. And another part of us going to this direct drilling, this no-till, strip-till type arrangement, is that hopefully we can increase the organic matter in our soil. And the organic matter is basically the living, breathing part of the soil. And to do that, we need to sort of basically stop touching it and let it come back to the way it is, and not to over cultivate. But for us on our sandy soil, if we can increase the organic matter by 1-2%, what we'll do is we'll increase the water holding potential of that soil. So that's something that we're trying to do. I think, to be honest, I think that's going to be a lifetime project for me. I think if the next generation, hopefully my little daughter, who we might see in a second, I hope to leave the farm in a better condition than I found it, and I found it in a pretty good condition. I want to leave it in a better condition. So last little bit from me. I can't see the comments, and I don't know how to find them. So I don't know if there's any questions. And so last little bit, I just want to talk a little bit about our diversification project. So 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, I got married, and here, right on cue, is my wife and my little daughter India. And my wife is a riding instructor, and so we put in this riding facility. This is a outdoor riding arena for all you horse nerds. It's 60 metres by 25. Annie is a dressage specialist. India, I'm trying to convince India that horsepower is better than horses, but it's not going very well at the moment. So so this is Annie's little haven, shall we say. It's taken out one of our fields. It's taken out one of my best fields, but we don't talk about that. And we have now converted it into this sort of equestrian centre, I suppose. And Annie runs here out of here and teaches lots of people. Obviously, COVID-19 has really affected that. And these are the paddocks out the back. And then hopefully, little India here, who is not going to smile for me today. Are you going to smile? Or you are going to smile. Hopefully, she'll be able to take over both the farm and the equestrian, should she want to. But we won't be forcing her down that road. Hopefully, she'll be really, really bright and go and earn lots of money in the city. So that's the riding arena. Do you want to say anything about your riding arena?
No, not really.
No? Okay, that's good. Poor Annie, sadly, obviously, as you've worked out, is I talk a lot, so she doesn't really get a word in edgeways. But so that's the one riding. So, and then over last year, we did one final diversification project. Well, not final, but a new one for us, which was trying to embrace more people on the farm. And we have converted an old horse lorry into a glamping pod. We got it all set up, all ready to go. Our first guests were coming in on the 26th of March. It was going to be fantastic. We've spent all the money, we've converted the lorry, and I was ready. And then on my birthday, which will be now forever, the day that we got locked down, obviously lockdown happened. So we never, ever got to open. And yeah, here she is. So here she has been. And as you'll all know, throughout the year, we have had 3 bank holidays, and each bank holiday has been absolutely glorious. And we will never see a year where we get 3 bank holidays that are as good as this. But that's life. Hopefully at some point somebody else will be able to enjoy here. We're really pleased with it. We've actually had a couple of barbecues up here during Easter and stuff, because Well, let's be honest, if someone might as well make the use of it. We've put it in the nicest place on the farm, and the fact that no one has got to use it yet, and even though we were fully booked for April and May, so no one has currently got to use it, but hopefully one day soon somebody will be able to come and sit here on this decking and look at that view. And they'll be able to enjoy it as much as we have putting it here. It's been a weird old world this year, hasn't it? So I think it's important for us to reflect as farmers and actually how lucky we are. I've felt at times almost guilty, if I'm completely honest, because I get to call this lockdown. This isn't lockdown. I live in 500 acres of beautiful Hertfordshire. So hopefully soon somebody else will be able to come up here, sit on Bertha, enjoy the views, and have a lovely weekend with their families. And on that note, I have rattled on far too much, as I normally do. I'm sorry I haven't been able to answer questions. I couldn't get the comments up. I should be better at technology than I am. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you carry on watching Online Farm Sunday. The guys and girls at Leaf work so hard for this, and they've done such a brilliant job. There's some incredible farms coming up next who are going to be far better suited to this than I am. But have a great day, and hopefully Open Farm Sunday will be back, and it will be bigger and better than ever, and I hope that you're all out on farm next year when it comes back. Cheers then, guys. Bye bye.